Hi everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the COM 501 Student Choice Assignment Podcast. My name is Joseph Abraham, and in this episode, I'm diving into one of the most fascinating communication theories I encountered in Dr. Vickery's class at SUNY Oswego, the spiral of silence. Together, we will explore what the spiral of silence is, how my own research on political expression and disclosure online led me to this theory, some applications of it, and how spiral of silence overall is so useful in understanding our everyday life. So, let's get into it. The spiral of silence is a theory developed by Elizabeth Noel Newman in 1974, and it helps explain why people often remain silent when they believe their opinions are unpopular or go against the majority. At its core, the theory argues that silence isn't random. It's driven by fear of social isolation. Noel Newman's theory is built on three core assumptions as described by Dainton and Zelley in the 5th edition of Applying Communication Theory for Professional Life, a practical introduction. First, humans are social creatures who seek inclusion and fear social isolation. This means we don't want to be socially rejected or excluded for voicing what we perceive as the wrong opinion. Second, people routinely monitor their environment or opinion climate when it comes to controversial topics, social issues, or political views. We watch what others say, how they react, and what the dominant view seems to be. And third, when you combine this fear of isolation with the ability to sense what the public opinion is of an issue, that influences whether or not we will speak up or stay silent. If we sense disagreement or potential backlash, we are far more likely to choose the latter. When people who disagree stay quiet, the dominant opinion looks even more popular, which makes even more people keep quiet, so the silence spreads. My personal opinion is that this theory was way ahead of its time, as it was developed decades before the advent of social media, which basically takes whatever concerns one may have about this resulting silence and amplifies it exponentially. I actually stumbled upon the theory before we discussed it in class through research as part of the literature review assignment my peers and I worked on throughout the semester. I was specifically interested in why people choose to disclose or withhold political opinions on social media. Several of the publications I encountered on this research journey mentioned and or utilized the spiral of silence. In the interest of time, I will highlight 3 examples or applications of the theory that I found in my research. In 2002, Crandall and Ayres looked at communication apprehension and the spiral of silence, examining whether a relationship exists between an individual's level of communication apprehension and their willingness to express opinions in public, particularly to a stranger. They also used the spiral of silence to explore how psychological fear may influence public silence beyond social pressures. Results showed that individuals with high communication apprehension were significantly less willing to express opinions in public than those with low communication apprehension. Participants were more likely to share opinions with friends than with strangers, and when they agreed with others rather than disagreed. High communication apprehension individuals were especially reluctant to speak with strangers. Ultimately, Crandall and Ayres' findings extend spiral of silence by suggesting that silence in public discourse stems not only from fear of social isolation, but also from psychological factors such as communication apprehension. In 2023, Weeks and colleagues examined how fears of social and professional consequences, what they term fear of social sanctions, affect people's willingness to share political opinions online. Using panel survey data collected during the 2020 U.S. election, the researchers analyzed responses from Facebook users to test how network diversity and size shape online political expression. Results showed that individuals with more ideologically diverse networks were more fearful of social sanctions, and as a result, less likely to share, post, comment on, or like political content. Network size was found to have less effect on users' willingness to share, showing that diversity, not reach, drives self-censorship. More recently, Hogg and Company looked at spiral of silence and the creation of echo chambers and filter bubbles on social media. This study examines how members of social media communities disclose or fail to disclose opinions that support or oppose the dominant community opinion, drawing on the spiral of silence theory. The authors argue, however, that these social media communities contain their own dominant opinions that are not necessarily reflective of the prevailing public opinion of an issue. So, what ideas reign supreme in these online groups can differ from what we view as the dominant issues in society. Looking at fear of isolation, the authors explain that past research focuses on 2 shapes: trait-based, a person's already existing long-term view, and state-based, or the momentary reaction to a specific situation. Their findings showed that participants' willingness to share opinions was shaped more by their immediate state-based fear of isolation than by long-term tendencies, leading users to share opinions that fit in and avoid those that might set them apart. So that's a more academic look at the spiral of silence using relatively recent research, but what I find most interesting about this theory is how prevalent it is in our everyday lives. As a state employee, I choose to withhold my political opinions for a couple of reasons. The first is that state ethics training discourages talking about politics in the workplace, and second, if I couple this with working in PR, I am a representative of the brand at the university where I work, and expressing my personal views may not align with it in certain scenarios. So in some ways, you could say I'm fearful, or at the very least concerned with professional consequences of speaking up. It's the holiday season, and we all like to gather with friends and family. I, like so many others, often bite my tongue when it comes to some political or hot-button issues out of a desire to maintain harmony. Unless it is something I cannot live with staying silent about, I refrain from expressing my opinion so I don't damage relationships with family members who have a different set of thinking, especially when it comes to politics or some religious topics. And finally, think back to elementary school or high school. Did you ever stay silent to fit in with your peers, or to be seen as popular, or at least not uncool? Whether online, at work, or around the dinner table, the spiral of silence is constantly shaping how and when we choose to speak. By becoming more aware of it, we can better understand not only others' silence, but our own. Thank you for joining me on this theoretical journey, and I hope you all have a wonderful winter break. It has been so amazing to get to know you and read all of your amazing insights in the course this semester.